Have you ever noticed a strange thing? Gardeners keep buying more and more pest control products, yet somehow the pests only become more numerous. Every year there are new bottles, new formulas, new promises on the packaging, and every year the same result. Leaves full of holes, ovaries chewed off, and on forums people write the same phrases. An invasion this year? Never seen anything like it. They ate everything in a week. And the most unpleasant part is the feeling that the problem is you, as if you're doing something wrong. But here is what's interesting. In agricultural reports, in notes from university agronomists, and even in conversations with old farmers, an observation occasionally surfaces. Pests attack neglected plots less than they do neat, well-kept, perfectly clean gardens, the very ones their owners are proud of. A paradox? At first glance, yes. In reality, it is the key to the whole story. We are used to thinking that pests come from outside, from the neighboring field, from the forest. They flew in. So the logic is clear. Defend, destroy, poison, drive them away. But more and more often, scientists cautiously formulate another idea. Plants rarely become targets by chance. Insects do not hunt healthy plantings as actively as we think. They find weakened ones. And here begins the most important part, the one usually not mentioned on insecticide packaging. As far back as the middle of the last century, entomologists noticed that insects do not navigate by sight. They navigate by smell, more precisely, by complex chemical signals. A plant under stress releases a different set of volatile substances. We cannot notice them. For aphids, whiteflies, or caterpillars, it is literally a beacon in the dark. Not food, but a signal. Here is easy prey. The defense mechanisms are weakened. In simpler terms, pests are more often not the cause, but a symptom. Old farmers put it more simply, the beetle goes where the plant is asking for help. Back then it sounded like peasant philosophy. Today, similar ideas are cautiously confirmed by research into the soil microbiome and plant immunity. A plant is not a passive organism. It can defend itself. It has its own chemical defenses, strengthening of cell walls, interaction with soil fungi and bacteria, but only if the system beneath it works. Now imagine a typical situation. We see aphids and immediately spray. The insects die. And along with them die those we never even noticed. Lacewing larvae, tiny parasitic wasps, soil beetles, microorganisms on the leaf surface. We win the battle in a single day and lose the season because the ecosystem was destroyed faster than it could recover. And here appears what many call the old method, although in reality it is more a forgotten agricultural logic. In different places it was practiced differently. Among Mennonites in some areas, on small farms in New England in others, in European villages elsewhere. No mystery or mysticism, just generations of observation. They did not try to make the garden sterile. They tried to make it resilient. The first thing they understood, pest control does not begin on the leaves. It begins under your feet. Soil is not dirt. It is a living environment. In a single handful of earth, there may be billions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, actinomycetes, an entire network. Some of them form alliances with plant roots that biologists call mycorrhiza. The fungus literally connects with the root and expands its abilities, helps obtain water and minerals, and sometimes even triggers the plant's defensive reactions. In return, the plant shares sugars. This is not a theory. It has been observed under a microscope. When the soil is poor, dug into dust, and deprived of organic matter, this network collapses. The plant is left alone. It grows, but its defenses are weaker. And it is precisely such plants that pests most often find. And then something unexpected happens. Adding compost, not as fertilizer, but as a source of life, begins to change not only growth, but also the insect's interest in the plantings. In notes from university specialists, it was sometimes cautiously mentioned plants on organic-rich beds suffer less damage even without treatments. Not zero, of course. Nature is never sterile. But the difference is noticeable. This explains an old observation long considered coincidence. On some plots, aphids appear every year, while on neighboring ones, almost never, although the climate is the same and the plants are the same. And here a shift in thinking occurs. If pests are a signal of disturbed balance, then the gardener's task is not war but system tuning. Not to destroy every insect, but to make it so that an outbreak of population simply does not occur. It sounds almost too simple, but then it becomes even more interesting. Because the next thing farmers noticed long before scientific explanations concerns not soil, but the smells of plants to each other. And here comes the moment that flips all conventional logic. Pest control is not about killing insects, but about managing the attention and behavior of nature. Old farmers devised clever techniques that almost look like tricks, yet work without chemicals or complex technology. For example, they used trap crops, plants that pests find tastier than your main vegetables, strategically placing them so the insects concentrate there, leaving the main crops alone. Nasturtiums, radishes, marigolds, even certain types of squash, all of these act as decoys that can save an entire harvest. And then the most amazing thing happens. Natural predators, attracted by the flowering herbs and marigolds, handle the pest colony themselves. Humans intervene almost not at all, yet the effect is astounding. The garden seems to defend itself. Another element rarely noticed is the plant power companions. Farmers mixed crops so that each bed became not just a collection of plants, but a living network of signals and scents. Tomatoes, peppers, basil, marigolds, dill, cilantro. All these plants together create an impenetrable chemical web that confuses insects. Whiteflies, aphids, caterpillars literally get lost and cannot find their targets. At the same time, the proximity of plants with different scents works both as a natural repellent and a beacon. Some plants distract pests, while others attract their enemies. This is not theory. It is what old farmers tested for decades in practice. But the most remarkable detail is hidden in small, almost imperceptible habits. Young plants are the most vulnerable stage. Here, a very simple but brilliant solution is applied: cardboard collars around the stems. It seems primitive, yet this little trick protects seedlings from nocturnal larvae and caterpillars, which could destroy a plant overnight. After a few weeks, the stem becomes strong enough. The collar naturally decomposes, and the plant is ready to withstand attacks without chemicals. Then there is the morning inspection, almost a ritual that changes everything. Not just a check, but active observation and engagement in the garden's life. You notice the first signs of problems before they escalate into disaster. Every egg, every tiny caterpillar, every warning signal is recorded in time. 10 to 15 minutes in the morning prevents weeks of damage that could have undone your efforts. This is not merely a habit. It is a skill that turns a garden into a self-protecting system. And you know what's most astonishing? All of this works together as a single mechanism. Compost revitalizes the soil and strengthens the plants. Mixed plantings create chaos for pests. Flowering herbs attract their natural enemies. Trap crops distract insects, and morning inspections catch problems at the start. Each element reinforces the others. There has never been a single secret remedy. It's a system that functions as a whole. Farmers who used these methods for centuries understood one simple rule: the garden takes care of its problems if you create the right conditions. And it works even where modern chemical methods fail. The secret is not a super product, but that you stop fighting nature and start understanding it. There are also a few small details that make the system nearly foolproof. Garlic and hot pepper infusions repel insects without killing them. Clover and stones along the beds provide shelter for beetles and spiders. Narrow strips of flowers create an insectary where predators find food and reproduce, maintaining balance. All these techniques do not work in isolation, but together, creating a living shield that protects the harvest without chemicals, without stress to the plants, and without extra labor. And here is the most important part. When you implement these methods, the garden stops being a battlefield and becomes a living organism, where plants, soil, and insects interact so that problems do not turn into disasters. You no longer react to attacks, but manage a scenario in which nature does all the work for you while you simply guide the flow, intervening only at the most vulnerable moments. For most gardeners, this is a true revolution in thinking. The habit of fighting every beetle is replaced by the understanding that the right strategy is to create conditions where pests cannot thrive, and their natural enemies act while you calmly observe the garden. This philosophy, tested over centuries, allows for a stable harvest, minimizing losses and stress. And the most amazing thing, all of this can be done without chemicals, expensive products, or heroic effort, simply by applying logic, observation, and an understanding of relationships. As a result, the garden transforms from a battlefield into a living, resilient system, where every detail plays a role, and the harvest is almost self-protected. And this discovery overturns the usual notion of pest control, showing that sometimes the simplest path is not combat, but creating conditions in which victory comes on its own.